Hello. I made it. What did you say, Jared? Hello, Detroit. I'm home. Not as in like home in Detroit. I'm home. I went to the store and there were crazy lines that I was not even kind of expecting on a Tuesday. But then I forgot that Christmas is less than a week away. So maybe that was my fault for not thinking about that. Hey, Heather. And then I'm like, I don't have time to do my hair. But I went to the store like this, so we're all friends here. We can talk. I'm so excited. I'm going to give a minute for everyone that can jump on to jump on. Hey, Gwen. We're going to talk frankincense because this is my group. I'm going to do what I want. We're going to be a little bit non-compliant tonight. So you may want to take notes if you haven't heard any of this stuff before. I'm thinking that I might be able to download this before I delete it, and then I could make it available by email. So, but it will go away. It won't be here forever because I'm going to say crazy words that we're not supposed to say online. It's my group and I do what I want. All right, everybody hear me okay? Is my broadcast okay? Aside from my son coughing because we all had a cold over the weekend. And frankincense, by the way, is my favorite when I have a cold. I'll get to that, but it's one of my top ones. Is anyone commenting? Because I can't see comments if anyone is commenting. Jared, can you jump on and see if people are commenting?
I shall.
You guys should tell me who has their Christmas shopping done and who hasn't started. I just need to make sure I can see comments. If not, Jared's just going to have to watch and keep me up to date on comments, questions. Make sure if there's something you want to know about frankincense that you ask me in the comments and Jared will read it off to me. I'm not seeing any comments.
Heather Freshwood said, dang, girl, it'd be late.
It is so late.
Tricia says, hello, lovely. Gwen says, hi, Jen. Non-compliance, that's why I'm here.
Non-compliance is why you're here. Yes. Okay, so I can't see comments. Jared's going to keep me up to date, right? Jared, you're going to have to... Just give me the phone. Just give me the phone. I didn't mean for that to sound as bossy as it did.
Yeah, you did.
Maybe a little bit. Okay, so here we go, guys. I'm going to tell you all of the truths I know. Jared's phone is right here, and I'm going to watch the comments there and try to ignore the fact that my face is talking to me just below where I'm at. Okay, so frankincense. When I first started with frankincense, there was a video that Dr. Hill did, and could you guys kind of be less busy behind me? Okay, I'm glad I'm in my private group and not public. So when I first started, so that was it was 2013, February 2013. I was a customer, but there was this YouTube video of Dr. Hill talking about frankincense, and he just went into all of the research. And I remember being totally blown away by frankincense, and I am so sad that that doesn't exist anymore. So when I say things like frankincense promo is legit, guys, I'm not talking about reducing wrinkles and fine lines. I'm not talking about, supporting a positive mood or decreasing brain fog or any of that stuff that we talk about when we talk compliantly about frankincense. I'm talking about real life anti-inflammatory action inside your body. So first and foremost, frankincense now has 4 species of frankincense in it, which makes it more sustainable, and it makes it more of a complete profile of frankincense. It pulls like the best of 4 worlds together. So what's exciting about that is that we see components in frankincense that interact with our cells in a really intelligent way. They help our bodies figure out which cells have to die and which cells can continue on in their life. And so that gets really important when we're talking about dealing with cancer. So while there's a whole area where people have not researched enough about cancer and frankincense essential oil. So we're not going to talk about that part because I haven't read enough research that makes me believe that that's true. But I certainly haven't seen enough research that makes me think it's not true. So to complete the cycle, I take 2 drops of frankincense underneath my tongue every single morning, non-negotiable. I now do copaiba at the same exact time. So that's my morning routine. So frankincense, copaiba underneath the tongue. To also kind of up the frankincense, I take a deep blue polyphenol complex every single morning because it has frankincense extract in it. The frankincense extract is really what we have the research to back up quite a bit of claims as far as helping our body fight cancer cells. So we're not talking about curing cancer because even though I'm being non-compliant, I don't want to be misleading in any way. Ooh, I look like I'm like glitching out on my end. Can everybody see me okay? I think maybe I'm okay. So I don't want to be misleading either. So I want to make sure everyone knows that I'm not talking about curing cancer, right? Frankincense isn't chemo. What frankincense does is it helps our body to mark cells for death, keep healthy cells healthy. Frankincense has chemical components that help to get inside the cell and help to repair damaged DNA, to help, that's too loud, Jer, to help really fix things that are caused to alter and change in our DNA from like radiation and things like that. So that's where a ton of really promising research is showing frankincense has a lot of action. So we're talking about cell repair, cell rejuvenation, and then cell apoptosis. If you want to look that up in the research, cell apoptosis, that's spelled A-P-T-O-S-I-S. So frankincense gets at these cells that are unhealthy or that are replicating in an unhealthy manner, which we could call cancer. And the immune system is having a really hard time handling all of these cells that are mutating. So what frankincense does is it almost like marks these cells and breaks down certain parts of their structure so that they're easier to kill. And then it also helps us to boost our immune system by supporting the liver, supporting the kidneys, supporting our hormones, and balancing inflammation in the body so that our body can focus on actual threats and not attack healthy tissues or over-attack tissues. So the chemical components inside frankincense are doing multiple things, and it's a multifaceted approach when we talk about cell health. So frankincense is the cell health essential oil, and when we say cell health, what we're really talking about is this inflammatory, cancerous type process that happens inside the body. Because I know not everybody has a strong background maybe in anatomy and physiology, but the truth is we all have cancer cells inside of us at all times, right? So what happens is our immune system just naturally handles it. So we have processes in place that handle those cancers, that handle inflamed cells and free radicals and oxidize, we can handle most of that. The reason that cancer takes over is because our immune systems aren't able to keep up. So that can happen with a weakened immune system. It can happen with an overstimulated, overactive immune system. That can happen when we're exposed to just too many factors, right? So if you have genetic predisposition, if you're a smoker, a drinker, or you're in a lot of pollution, or you're around those things, or, all these different things. Food allergies, chronic food allergies, we're finding it's very multifaceted. And so the best defense is to really have an amped up immune system that does what it's supposed to do efficiently and isn't overwhelmed. And that's where frankincense is like the best. So some of the research shows that frankincense is an anti-inflammatory. So it's going to help with pains, aches, and that's going to be in your joints. It's headaches. It's going to be, back aches, spasms, anything like that. Frankincense is really going to help. If you've seen me talk about pain before, my favorite pain protocol is a veggie capsule of 2 drops frankincense, 2 drops marjoram, and 2 drops lemongrass in a veggie cap. It's like the best. So frankincense is a really good painkiller. It's also really good at helping your joints, the tendons, the muscles, the actual joints themselves. It's good at helping support this cell regrowth. So it's really good. Chronic joints, right? Like joints that are chronically inflamed, bad knees, bad ankles, like tennis elbow, those kind of things respond really, really well to frankincense. You'll see a big increase in joint mobility, and this can sometimes take 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks. That's why I'm saying 2 drops under the tongue is so, so, so important, because it's the consistency of getting in there and really helping the cells to heal. And that's where we're really focusing on frankincense's consistency, which is why it's so crazy awesome when it's free with a 200 PV purchase, because you can get and stock up on so many other things and then get that $70 oil totally free. So in addition to the big immune system inflammatory thing with frankincense, another thing that's really near and dear to my heart that I wish I could get frankincense into every single assisted living, nursing home, dementia unit in existence, because diffusing frankincense and applying diluted frankincense to the back of the neck, right by that brainstem area, can increase function and increase memory and increase recall with people with dementia and Alzheimer's really, really well. Getting it into a diffuser, getting it on the back of the neck, those things are vital. And consistency is really important in those cases too. And so it's going to help the brain cells to rejuvenate. It's going to help with the actual neuro pathways that help people to recall and help remember to reconnect those damaged pathways that are all scrambled. So frankincense is really good for brain health. It has chemical components inside of it that can cross the blood-brain barrier, which makes it a completely different game, right? Most medications that people try to treat dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, tremors, seizures, things like that, you can't get frankincense into the brain. You can't get most modern medications into the brain. The blood-brain barrier is what protects the brain from whatever kind of toxins might be in the blood. So the blood-brain barrier is there to protect our brain, but then it also helps block any sort of medication that might help somebody. So frankincense has chemical components that can actually get into the brain, right? Which is game-changing. So in that instance, I would be putting things under the tongue. I'd be putting it on the back of the neck. I'd be rubbing it on the feet. I'd be diffusing it. And if you're diluting it and putting it in those areas on somebody, you're going to see an increase. This is also something we see with seizures that is unbelievable. We have a few cases, if they end up seeing this video, I hope they do, I'll send it to them and ask them to maybe come give their testimonials. We have people in our group that we know in real life that have had debilitating seizure disorders and start using frankincense under the tongue, on the back of the neck, bottoms of the feet, and the seizures stop. And there's a big difference between our frankincense and other frankincense. And the first thing is that most frankincense that is not expensive is actually going to be a mixture of cypress and different resins from wherever, right? So there'll be a little bit of frankincense and then there'll be a lot of cypress. And that's why sometimes you'll open up a bottle of frankincense at the store. We just did this at Better Health, and the frankincense smelled just like cypress. And I was like, that's not even kind of what frankincense smells like. But when they do it, they can even put cypress, and there's one other tree that you can put in and it will almost mimic the testing of frankincense. The problem is that while that oil may not be dangerous, it doesn't have the chemical components necessary to stop seizures. Only certain strands of frankincense have the chemical component to stop seizures. Our frankincense uses all of them. So our frankincense is going to be, and this isn't to bash other companies, but our frankincense is going to be one of the only frankincense on the market that's going to be able to do what we say it's going to do in helping with seizures. And there's always going to be cases where it's not going to be as effective and mind-blowing as some cases are, depending on what the cause of the seizures are. because if it's a trigger that's caused by some external force, that gets a little bit different. But these really difficult to control seizures will see huge significant results, and it is absolutely so important that if you know anybody that suffers from seizures, that you get them frankincense in their hand, because it's going to be something that's really powerful. So what did I talk about? So I talked about the immune system, I talked about seizures. It's like non-compliant. So other brain activity, right? So while we're on the brain, I talked about a little bit about Parkinson's. You're going to see a huge difference with Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis. You're going to see a huge difference with things like Lyme disease when it settles in the brain, right? So frankincense is going to be able to get into the brain and help with those issues as well. Because of what frankincense does for cells, it's very important in MS because it helps to, I'm not being compliant. Look at me trying to search for compliant ways to say things. It's going to really help to heal those tissues, get rid of the damaged tissues, help get into the cells, and help change the faulty coding that is causing the issue in the first place. And so that's where it's going to get important. Consistency is always important, but you want to make sure you're getting it to people as soon as they find out they have these conditions. Also really important for autoimmune disorders, right? So if you're unaware of what those are, thyroid, Hashimoto's, hyperthyroidism, lupus, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, all those kinds of things that are autoimmune inflammatory issues, you want to get frankincense in those. Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disorder, leaky gut syndrome, anything where you have inflamed tissues, you want to get frankincense internally. Okay, so the 2 drops under the tongue is going to get it into the bloodstream. I always, in cases of like inflammatory bowel or leaky gut, different things that are inflammatory internally, autoimmune disorders, in those situations, you really want to get it into a veggie cap and into the digestive system, not just under the tongue. So you just want to think about it as doubling up and really going after it. Okay, so then also, I'm trying to go make sure I don't skip anything. Asthma. Asthma sufferers. I know a lot of people have asthma, and a lot of people use our breathe oil to really help support the lungs. Frankincense diffused when somebody's having an asthma attack, or somebody's coming out of or healing from one, or when someone has asthma and they get a respiratory infection, or they get the flu or something like that and they're really inflamed. Having frankincense diffusing and putting frankincense under their tongue is going to help to quiet the inflammation, and it's going to really help to heal those lung tissues so that they can exchange oxygen better. Trisha, I love when you talk non-compliantly to us. I know. Well, I feel like frankincense deserves it. It's one of those oils that if people knew, right? I always feel like I think frankincense is kind of the oil that got the really crappy end of the stick with compliance, because you can almost not talk about frankincense in any way that's compliant unless you want to talk about skin, hair, nails or something, you know, and mood. So asthma, really good for the lung tissues, really good for the lung tissues, really good if you have any sort of excess phlegm. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm still congested, and we have had this like upper respiratory virus, and we're coughing and hacking. We just got home from the store. As soon as I get frankincense going in the diffusers, I do frankincense and lemongrass and lime. Magic combination for phlegm. And it's like within 10 minutes, we're all breathing easier. You know, we're inhaling it from our hands. I'm putting it on everybody's tongue right before bed. And so for those kinds of things, it decreases phlegm. It decreases coughing. It relaxes those muscles, and it really helps to get you breathing clearly again. Jared, can you come grab the dog over here? When we talked about the brain, I did not talk about brain injuries. I should have. I'm just trying to keep myself sorry that this is kind of sporadic, but brain injuries. So, traumatic brain injuries from car accidents, things like that. Any sort of brain injury where there was bleeding in the brain or aneurysms or anything like that, you want frankincense, okay? So in addition to everything else brain oriented, you really want to make sure that you count that for brain injury as well. So, but yes, so back to the lungs. So it helps to quiet inflammation. It helps those tissues to move oxygen better. It helps with the blood flow better. When you get things into your lungs, they're going to get into your blood flow as well. And so diffusing them is going to help heal the lungs, and it's also going to get it into your blood system and get it throughout your whole entire body, which is going to help with the virus stuff. So if you're trying to deal with a virus that's causing lungs to have phlegm and mucus and tightness and things like that, it's really important. And then so while we're talking about this, I'd like to talk about viruses, right? Different viruses like hepatitis, hepatitis, and why is my brain failing me right now? What's the other big virus that everyone gets? Mono, right? So mono, hepatitis, these really heavy hitting viruses that modern medicine doesn't have a really good handle on yet. You want to use frankincense in those instances. Frankincense is, oh, you have, Heather, I'm reading your comment. You have the nasty chest too. So I do my dewdrop, which I know everybody's always like, what? Because you need like 35 to 40 drops in the dewdrop, but then it runs forever and it's humidifying. So I do 10 drops each. And then I throw a little oregano in there too. So it's kind of a lot of oils, but when you're coughing and hacking, and it's free with a $200 purchase, you just dump it in there. No. But yeah, that's the ratios I use. So any kind of major viral infection like that, you're going to want to use frankincense because of how it gets into the cells. So it gets into the cells and helps to support all sorts of different viral infections. But in the case like of hepatitis, it's going to do double duty, where it's going to soothe the liver tissues. And if you don't know much about how the liver functions, I've got a great blog post about it. The liver's fascinating. First of all, I'll say that. And it's one of my favorite organs, which maybe if you're not a nurse, you don't have favorite organs, but I have one, and it's the liver. Followed by the spleen. So the liver does so much. Like it regulates our blood sugars, it helps regulate hormones. Your liver packs and holds and stores excess blood. So if you're hurt or injured and you lose a ton of blood, your liver has this backup that it sends out into your bloodstream to save your life. So your liver is just really important in a lot of different ways, in addition to filtering out toxins and helping you digest food and things like that. So we tend to put the liver into kind of a box, but frankincense is really good at supporting your liver tissues and supporting your tissues or your liver in doing all the things it does well. So in the way that frankincense is super supportive of the liver, if you're using frankincense daily, you're going to notice a difference in your hormone levels. You're going to notice a difference in your blood sugar metabolism. You're going to notice a difference in how you're handling fats and how you're handling foods, and your gallbladder is going to be happier. And so we're talking about frankincense really getting in at the root cause of a lot of weird random symptoms that people have. So frankincense is really good for your skin, right? And so we talk about frankincense for dry skin all the time. But frankincense, most dry skin is from some sort of imbalance internally, whether it's kidney or it's liver or it's a hydration status or it's a gastrointestinal tract issue. It's usually some sort of internal inflammation that causes dry skin. And so you're going to get frankincense soothing the skin on the outside, but also soothing the inflammation on the inside. So it's like a double whammy approach. It's not just treating the symptoms, it's treating that root cause. Same thing where frankincense is really good at knocking out viruses, but frankincense is really good at supporting our immune system. And so when you're using frankincense in this way, it's going to get at those root things in completely different ways, and it's going to notice, or it's going to totally change the different symptoms, and you're going to notice that the symptoms that you had that you thought were unrelated start to go away. And so that's one of the really important things. Yes, I was just going to talk about frankincense and diabetes. So frankincense does the same thing with the pancreas that it does with the liver. So frankincense is going to soothe the liver and help the liver do what it does best. Because of that really complex chemical profile, it's going to help the liver tissues. It also will help the pancreatic tissues. I find that with diabetes, it's very multifaceted, and it's usually a long time coming. So whether, if you're born with it, right, that's something that's in there at the DNA level, and so it's not something you're going to notice a huge difference overnight. But if you have functioning, was that my painting?
No.
Oh.
You new one?
Yes.
No.
Sorry. I just thought he dropped my brand new. Can you show it off so everyone understands why I just panicked? I'm like, y'all, wait until you see what I got. I'll wait to finish my thought until you can see what I got today. Because I'm obsessed with where I come from. Look at this. It's going in my new office. It's an old world map of Michigan. So pretty. You can just hold it right there. It's a good backdrop. Thanks. Cover your face though. That's weird. There you go. I'm joking, dude. You do it too. He would. He'd stand there and hold that painting all night. So if it's something like no, stop now. You're distracting me. If it's like something you're born with, you're dismissed. Like a diabetes that you're born with, the DNA structures. But if you have any functioning cells that are making insulin, it's going to enhance that and help them to produce that in the way that your body is supposed to be doing it. And that's going to be longer over time. So you're going to want to start frankincense under the tongue, and I would also dilute frankincense and put it over the pancreas area. And you really want to do that consistently for a month or two and make sure that you're checking your blood sugars and you're keeping an eye on them, because it will start to work, and when it starts to work, you will notice it. Same with frankincense, using frankincense along with lemon or lemongrass for blood pressure. You will notice when the frankincense starts to do its job, when it gets to that therapeutic level in your blood. So you want to be monitoring yourself so that you're aware of when it kicks in and starts working. Again, with frankincense, it's also going to be helping the liver. So the liver and the pancreas are going to be working together to really shift and move towards health. I have an autoimmune situation that I've had my whole life, and when I'm in the middle of a flare-up, putting frankincense into, if I've gone off frankincense, which is the only time I end up having a flare-up, FYI, because I think I'm doing so well that I can just go off of it. And then getting myself out of the flare-up can take a little while, right? And so you want to make sure that you're really patient and you stay consistent with it much longer than 3 weeks, right? So 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, and then make sure that you're journaling your progress and how you're doing. And what always tends to happen is that you'll get to a point where you're like, oh, I forgot that was like as bad of a problem. It eases the symptoms super quickly. And then this is just a note as well, that if you start the Lifelong Vitality Pack and you're taking the Z Omegas, that has frankincense in it. And if you're taking DDR Prime, that has some frankincense in it. So if you're doing a drop or two of frankincense under your tongue, you're getting frankincense internally in your stomach and you're getting it under your tongue, and then you could just add topically. You don't also have to add a capsule of frankincense. That would just be if you're not taking the vitamins. So, but you do want to give it time, especially for diabetes. So some of the other, and if you do have questions, just throw them up there. It's not distracting to me, really. But the next thing I want to talk about is scar tissue. And I want to talk about scar tissue at the same time that I talk about fibroids and at the same time that I talk about cysts, because we're really talking about growth that's not cancerous, but that is not normal, right? So we should be able to heal without huge scars or unhealthy scars or adhesions if we have surgery and things like that. And cysts and fibroids are overgrowth. And so when we're talking about those, we want to talk about frankincense, because frankincense is going to do multiple different things. So when trees, which frankincense is a tree resin, any tree is going to have chemical components that help with structure of the skin. And that's something that's pretty easy to remember if you think about a forest. And if you think about a forest and how all of the trees grow, and then they have leaves that make the canopy, right? And so you want to think about, when you're using essential oils, trees help with the structure and the cell matrix of the skin layers. And then florals, like lavender, geranium, rose, jasmine. You might want to get him some frankincense, Jared. They're going to be the top layers of skin. So they're going to be the more beautifying layers of essential oils that you want to use. And I said, give Cedric some frankincense. He's coughing. And some breathe. Here.
I got the frankincense roller.
Oh, okay, that's good. And so that's what you want to think about. So trees are going to give structure to the skin, and they're going to increase the way it looks because they're helping the structure. Frankincense actually does a little bit of both. It helps the structure and it helps the top layer. But frankincense helping the structure is also going to be really important when you're trying to heal things like fibroids and cysts, because those are growths on top of something that shouldn't be growing that way, and it's faulty structural issues going on within the cells. Julie, just one type is known in scientific research. So Julie just said, for those watching the recording, in case I download this and send it out via email, Julie said, just one type of frankincense in DDR prime. I thought Emily mentioned in her recent video that Sakura was, or Sakura, however you say it, was the one that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Do all 4 species cross the blood-brain barrier? It's not necessarily the oil, it's the chemical component in the oil. So depending on their sourcing and exactly what chemical components, what percentage comes from which, that can be true. But again, it's the research isn't there yet. And so one of the things that we are finding with scientific research that researched things like this is that we can only speak to what we positively know, and other other companies' frankincense wasn't there yet. So doTERRA's only been on the market since 2008, so our scientific research can only tell us so much about which one crosses the blood-brain barrier. Does that make sense? It is hypothesized that many different chemical components in essential oils may cross the blood-brain barrier. We just don't know exactly which ones yet. Does that help? There's a ton of research on this, but not with doTERRA, right? So the research with doTERRA oils specifically is harder and harder for us to find now. It used to be pretty available, but it's not anymore. Does that help? But yeah, Dr. Hill, when he was in Detroit, he talked pretty extensively about this. And there's actually chemical components in sandalwood, too, that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And so it's all very exciting. But we do know that at least some of them for sure cross. Does that help? There's a delay, so I can't necessarily see your response yet, if that helps. But Emily is also talking compliantly. I'm not. What? Did you say something? Oh. Yeah. So it depends, right? Like what we can say publicly is just what we can back up with scientific claims. You'll see too, like if you guys follow Dr. Josh Axe, he talks pretty non-compliantly, and he talks about all the different research that we have coming out, that it's more than just the one. Okay, so thanks for the explanation. Give my boys with seizures DDR prime internally, but wondering if I should also do straight frank. Absolutely. Yeah, for seizures, absolutely. And I know that to be an absolute fact. I just talked with a physician that uses doTERRA oils, and we were talking specifically about topical usage of frankincense with seizures. So it's going to be, you're going to want to use the frankincense oil with all 4 species internally, and then I would also do a roller ball on the feet and up the spine for seizures, for sure. Yeah, I didn't know what we were talking about with the DDR prime. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing with the brain too, is that the wiring can go really haywire pretty quickly. And so frankincense is just so good at helping the brain cells, the wiring, the whole shebang, that you want to get the chemical components into the brain and keep them there, right? Because it's just like, and you see this with febrile seizures, right? Where they're fine, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. They have a super high fever. The fever drops a little bit and the brain seizures, right? Or the reverse, where they don't have a fever, they don't have a fever, they don't have a fever, they spike a super high fever and they have a seizure. Medicine used to think that the high fever was what caused the seizure, but over time and through research, they found that it's not necessarily the high fever that causes the seizure, it's the drastic change in temperature. So the electrical wiring in the brain is really finicky, more than we think it is. And so it's not necessarily that it can't handle high temperatures, it's the rapid change of temperatures. It's the rapid change. And so our brain will see seizure activity if there's a rapid change in electrolytes, a rapid change in temperature, a rapid change in sugar, right? So if you get really hypoglycemic, you can have a seizure. Things like that. So it's that rapid change. And so whenever you're dealing with something in the brain, you always want to make sure whatever you do consistently and do in a way that it's going to get into the brain in a consistent dosage. So I would, in that case, be using it on the feet and the spine every day, and probably a drop under the tongue, depending on how old they are. Okay. So what was I going to talk about? So I talked about the scarring and the tumors. One of the other things that I've really seen frankincense do crazy miraculous things for are lipomas. So lipomas are like tumors that are made out of fat. That's what lipo means. Lipoma. So like oma is like a growth or a tumor, and lipo is fat. So it's like a fatty tumor, and it's usually under a couple layers of skin. Dogs and cats get lipomas a lot. Dogs get them like a ton. I have people kind of freaking out about lipomas on their dogs, but I've also had friends get them. And frankincense topically, amazing results. Frankincense topically on dogs with tumors is like one of the things that, probably one of the things that you still see talked about non-compliantly on Facebook, because we can say completely different things about dogs than we can humans, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Are you trying to get my attention? Oh. You can stop cleaning while I'm at my call. Love you too. So we can talk differently about veterinary science than we can human science, which is crazy to me. But we can talk about how if dogs have cancer, skin cancer, lipomas, tumors, cysts, put frankincense on it. Dilute it, put the frankincense on it. Put some frankincense in their food. We can talk about that. And so you'll see in these pet groups people talking very actively about it. It's not as regulated, but we can't talk about it for humans. So just, if ever in doubt, you can always just look at that kind of research and say, well, it's worth a shot, right? So you want to put frankincense on anything that's weird, right? So like weird moles, even non-weird moles, warts, skin growths, tumors, cysts, like sebaceous gland. Oh man. Sarah said, I've been told our language with pet stuff has to be compliant, same as humans. Well, tell that to the pet board, Sarah. Who let you in? You're not supposed to be hearing me talk non-compliantly. Yes. But I'm saying if you Google it and you go on Facebook, you can find non-compliant language everywhere about animals. Everywhere. All in books. Vets will tell you stuff like that too. That's what I'm talking about. What's next? I think I covered most of it. Did I say warts when I said anything weird on your skin? Warts, tumors, sneaking into the party, crashing it. No, just joking. Just no one mind her. She's fine. She cool. She's with me. All right. Yes. So anything weird on the skin, warts. Those are gross anyway. Warts and oregano, frankincense and oregano and warts are going to work amazing. Any other skin things? Skin tags. Frankincense good for skin tags. Frankincense internally really good for cold sores. So if you get frequent cold sores, you want to add frankincense to your regimen during high stress periods. Frankincense is always going to work better if you can get in before something starts. So, and if you're doing this and you want to talk about this publicly, you want to talk about how it's supporting your immune system. The reason we talk about that is because that's frankincense's main game. So if you can get frankincense into your body before something triggers the reaction, you're going to have a way less likely chance of having it get as bad as it would be if you weren't on frankincense. So during cold and flu season, you want to up your frankincense and copaiba now that we have it. During high stress periods, if you have eczema that's stress induced, or you have anything that you have noticed is cortisol induced. So when I talked about frankincense helping the liver, frankincense really helps that hormone regulation that's going to help you not produce excess amounts of cortisol when you're stressed out. So that happens in your adrenal glands. So your adrenal glands, anytime you're stressed out or your body thinks there's some major kind of threat happening, you're going to release a bunch of cortisol. Frankincense is going to help your adrenals not release as much cortisol, and then it's going to help your body process the cortisol better than it does without frankincense. And one of the other things that frankincense does when we're talking about hormones is it really helps with premenstrual rage, premenstrual depression. Jared's laughing over there. I might be close to my cycle, so that's kind of a funny ha-ha in our house right now. So frankincense really helps with any kind of PMS symptoms. Frankincense really helps with the hormone and the brain function around pregnancy. So if you know somebody who's prone to like postpartum depression or postpartum, sleep disorders, postpartum anxiety, sometimes we only talk about postpartum depression and we kind of do a disservice to the women where the postpartum hormone drop manifests in different ways, like anxiety, panic, and other mood disorders. So frankincense is going to be really balancing in that way. And you want to make sure that you're using it preemptively. So if you know you have problems with that, you want to start using the frankincense before you have the baby. And you want to get everything regulated and get it into your system before then. So when we're talking about frankincense, I want to talk a little bit about what it does in blood vessels, because blood vessels are cells too. So it's going to help strengthen your blood vessels. It's going to help strengthen and support healthy blood flow. And that's going to be to your extremities. It's going to be to your brain. It's going to be in your heart, in your body. It's also one of the really cool things that we've seen in some research that's been taken down is that frankincense helps to support healthy blood flow in situations where the vasculature has been damaged by surgery, car accidents, having tumor removed, different things like that. So where you might see this, right, is when people have their prostates removed and there can be a really big impact on blood flow, and that can cause erectile dysfunction. Or if you have diabetes, sometimes that can cause blood flow to the extremities to not work as well. And so frankincense is going to be able to help support the structures again, right? So we talked about frankincense helping with the structure of skin. Think about it with the cells as well. Mucus linings, those internal linings of the intestines, the internal linings of vasculature. Think about everything down to the cellular level, and that's where frankincense really gets into our body and starts to work and do its magic. Yes, Nicole, frankincense is really good for pregnancy. I've got like story after story about frankincense and pregnancy. I don't even know if I can go into all of that, but when women get pregnant, frankincense belly rubs should be like a daily thing. So diluted frankincense all over the belly. Have your husband do the frankincense spine, or your partner do frankincense touch up and down your spine, on your brainstem. Frankincense is just so good at getting the blood flowing where it needs to flow. And because of pregnancy, when we're pregnant, our blood volume expands greatly because we are making a human being. And so we also have the placenta. That's all blood exchange, right? And we have vasculature on both sides, and frankincense is going to help that placenta really be healthy and thrive and work with your uterus and everything in the blood flow, keeping it happy and keeping it moving and keeping it strong. So anytime there's any sort of anything with cells or babies, right? So babies, like, I'm trying not to get too graphic, but babies are basically like rapid cell division, right? They're like cell division on fire. Yes, start ASAP to help with that postpartum stuff. Yes, so babies are just like this rapid cell division, right? They're just growing. And so anytime that you can encourage healthy cell growth during pregnancy, that's like your best. That's the super smart thing to do. That's why I love frankincense in a belly oil. I do frankincense and myrrh just because they're my favorite. But yeah, so definitely safe during pregnancy. Frankincense is one of those oils too. I'm going to talk about this really quickly. It's got a pretty solid safety profile. So a ton of people, most people, use frankincense willy-nilly and use it without diluting it because it's generally pretty safe. Like if it's going to cause a reaction, it's not like a super hot oil, so it's not going to give you like a big, hot, angry red skin issue. But frankincense can irritate your skin if you use it neat too often, and then it's going to be doing the very opposite that you want it to do. And so you really want to, Julie said, anyone else taking an extra drop right now? Yes, under the tongue. You really never want to use any essential oil neat. I mean, they all have their time and place. Like if you're going to dab one over like a pimple or a blemish, or if you're using them for energetic purposes, right? Like putting a drop over your heart space, something very small like that over a small surface area is not that big of a deal. But our skin doesn't have a mucous membrane because that'd be gross, right? If we had a mucous membrane covering our external skin, we wouldn't like touching each other, and then we'd probably be a completely different species, not to get weird. But so that we don't have that. But our insides do. So our mouth, our throat, our esophagus, our stomach, our intestines, it all has a mucous membrane. And what the mucous membrane does, and we see this when we eat jalapenos, right, or ghost peppers, or Thai food, is that when we eat something really spicy or hot or abrasive, our mucous membranes kick in, right? Have you ever had like a really hot bite of food and you're like drooling? Like your body just instantly knows what to do. Like, oh, let's dilute that. That's too strong for us. So in that way, research is starting to show us that internal usage of certain oils is going to be way safer than using them on your skin. And in that same way, we have to be diluting essential oils to protect our skin. And so I don't really tend to suggest using essential oils without diluting them first, unless it's a little bit of essential oil for a different reason. But I'm always diluting anyway. And always trying to make sure that I have some sort of barrier to my skin so that there's not a sensitization or a reaction. And especially frankincense, because you want to be able to use that on your face because we haven't gotten to this part yet. But frankincense is really good at helping support our structure of our skin. And so that's going to be really good for any place that you have wrinkles or smile lines or, you know, scarring, any kind of skin blemishes. Frankincense is really going to help. And so you want to be able to use it every single day. So you have to make sure you're diluting it for those things. Otherwise, after time, you could definitely sensitize yourself to frankincense, and that would be like a major travesty because it's such a magical oil. So like my frankincense touch, this one, and rose, because remember I said frankincense and trees help to build the structure of skin, and floral oils help with the top layers of skin. So I do frankincense. I have, because I make this face all the time, because I'm sassy. So I like, when I do that, those, I was getting really deep wrinkles, which sounds like a lie now because they've really gone away quite a bit. Can you see that? I was getting a really deep one. Jared, can you testify how deep that wrinkle was getting? Where'd you go? He was over here making a ton of noise, then walked away when I asked him a question. But you, remember how I was getting that really deep wrinkle in the middle of my forehead?
You don't wrinkle.
No, I don't. I don't get, I'm not lying about
She
that.
hasn't aged
I don't
in,
get
10
wrinkles.
years.
I do too. Remember I got that one right here that I was super worried about?
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
And because I don't get any wrinkles, so I was starting to stress about it. See how when I rub there, you can kind of see it. But it was getting really deep. And so I started putting frankincense there every morning and every night, and it's getting so much better. So, and I put frankincense, I go around here with the touch, like this, and then in here.
Where's that light?
Is that vein? No, that's fine. Because I'm gonna stay forever young. No questions. No one's excited about my wrinkles. What I'm saying. Yeah. So I think I've covered almost everything that I want to cover. No, I haven't. Okay. Can't believe I almost forgot to talk about this. So, the first year I was doing doTERRA as a business, when I first learned about everything frankincense, I was a customer. So then I've been doing the frankincense internally for a while. The very first year I was doing this as a business, I went in to get new glasses and an eye exam. Then she told me, your eyes have improved. And I was like, huh? And she's like, well, your baby's like 2 or 3. I forget how, he was like 3. She's like, so the hormones, that could be why your eyesight was improving. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then a year and a half later, I go in, my eyesight way improved. And she kept telling me, my optometrist, there's no way, we must have measured you wrong last time. And the reason I went in to get new glasses, because I was having frequent headaches and I thought my prescription was getting worse. My prescription was getting better. And my glasses were becoming too strong for me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I bet you it's this frankincense oil I'm taking internally. And she was like, ha 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 ha, that's not real. So then, this is same appointment. So then you know how they do that thing where they take you in the room, and I think it costs extra, and then they like blow air into your eye and take a picture of the back of your retina. It's super uncomfortable and scary. Like I have to brace myself. But we did that, and she's like talking to me, and she's really a funny doctor, and she was like, you know, I can guess people's ages. I'm like a circus sideshow. I can look at your retina and tell you exactly how old you are. It's like a skill I have. And I was like, okay, right? So my picture of my retina comes up, and she's looking at it, and she looks at me, and she looks at it, and she looks at me, and she's like, I know you're not in your 20s. And I was like, no. And she's like, I know that you just told me that you have kids, and you were just telling me, she's like, I would guess you're 25, 26 by looking at your retinas. And I was like 35 at the time. I'm 37 now. And I was like, yes. So I didn't even have any sort of knowledge if frankincense did that at the time. I just like, as soon as she said my eyesight was getting better, I was like, it's the frankincense. And so I came home and did a ton of research. There's a ton of stuff out there. You guys can Google it. Go to PubMed, type in frankincense eyesight. because it helps with blood vessels, right? And so smart and so duh, but it's one of those things. So if you have eyesight issues, the way that you want to be using it is just like I showed you. Jared took my roller. I'll show you with my Meluca. So I take the frankincense around the eye socket, and then I do it internally, right? So under the tongue. So that 1 to 2 drops of frankincense under your tongue is going to cover you for so much. And like, I really encourage people to keep journals, because you don't even realize half the stuff it's going to help you with. And when we have so much that we can look at and so many different research studies. So if you have the Modern Essentials book, they get pretty wild and non-compliant with the scientific research. So you can get in there and you can see the different research that they've used to make the claims that they make in that book. You can also go to aromaticscience.com. It's a great research, or a great resource. PubMed.org. You can type in frankincense and whatever else. Usually, like if you want to get really serious, you can just go to PubMed.org and type in frankincense and see how many research articles come up. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so any questions? Your phone just died. Can you go on the laptop and see if anyone has questions? I can't see your questions.
Give me 1 second.
Jared's going to check.
Don't you get questions?
No. This happened on my last one too. The last live I did. My makeup's like blurred. I can see everyone's pictures. I can see who's still here. Jared's checking for comments. Ask me anything, because this goes away super soon. Especially now that Sarah knows that we're doing it. I'm hoping she's still here. Otherwise, that'll look like I'm talking about her.
Computer's running slow. Internet's running slow.
So, guys, what's up? I do want to apologize again that this was so late. I feel bad. I felt super bad. But you know what happened? We were like halfway home, and then we came upon like an accident that was pretty gnarly, and they had the whole streets blocked off. It was pretty bad. So it gave us a little perspective about life and how Facebook Lives aren't so important. So we slowed down, took our time getting home. So it was one of those things. It's always funny how those things happen and really make you stop and think like, oh, I don't need to rush. We got this. Anything there, Jared? You can just bring me the laptop. I see Nancy's here. Man. Okay. I just see, thanks, this is amazing. Such bad eyesight. My sister's an optometrist, so I'm super excited about it. You really need to, like, journal that and get that. And, like, make your optometrist sister do the frankincense under the tongue and see if her eyesight improves. Sarah, how else am I supposed to learn about frankincense? No joke. You know how long I've been wanting to do a non-compliant talk about frankincense? I've been planning this for like 6 months. Totally hoping that they were going to do the frankincense promo. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it in my private group and then delete it. But I'm going to do it. I owe it to the people. And I'll tell you, too, that YouTube video that Dr. Hill did, the non-compliant one from 2012, 2013, that was powerful. He said even more stuff. I think he got like really vocal about the cancer cell's immune system. All right. I think that's all. You hear that echo? He said even more stuff. It is running slow, Jer. Maybe that's why I can't see comments. Okay, so I see what kind of a dilution. I think we were talking about things with seizures. Dilution is always, it's not usually, or actually it's never going to really be disease or symptom specific. It's always going to be specific to whatever the issue is whatever age and sensitization the person is. So whatever dilution it can be that'll help it absorb best into your bloodstream is going to be what you want to do. Where you're really going to see the difference is the frequency. So for something like somebody suffering from active seizures or an active autoimmune issue, you're going to want to use whatever dilution is good for their skin type and their age, right? Thinness of skin, but you're going to want to do it more frequently. So frequency and consistency are going to be where you are going to see an increase, never really in dilution. So dilution is going to stay the same always for safety. When you're talking about internal usage, I never do more than 1 or 2 drops of any oil. So when I'm doing a veggie cap, if there's like with frankincense, marjoram, and lemongrass, I do 1 to 2 drops each, right? That's 6 drops of oil. But I'm a seasoned essential oil user, so I feel comfortable with that. For a new person, I always say 1 drop each, and then that's only 3 drops of oil in a veggie cap. And so that's pretty much the same no matter what. Again, with active situations, you just might want to increase the frequency that you do it. So if you have just a general autoimmune issue, or you have a knee that acts up, or a sore ankle that's got like arthritis pain, or you have a low-level chronic eczema, right? 1 to 2 drops under the tongue every morning is probably going to be enough where you're going to see an improvement over time. My eyesight, I was not taking frankincense for my eyesight. That just improved on its own while I was dealing with other things. I was taking frankincense internally. Y'all know about my anxiety issue. Frankincense is really good for anxiety under the tongue. It's one of the ones that we sample out to people that have panic attacks. If you feel a panic attack coming on, 1 to 2 drops under the tongue immediately, right? And inhale it, and then these other oils, right? So frankincense is kind of that foundational thing. So when you're dealing with something that's more acute, and it's more pressing, and it's a big deal, increase frequency, not necessarily the amount of oil. Does that make sense? And that's with all oils, really. Because what you do, if you do too many oils, because you're like this is my pet peeve with like flu bombs and things like that you see on Pinterest. If you're taking like 12 oils internally, you're going to run the risk of actually making yourself feel a little worse, because that's quite a load to drop into your body, right? Then your body's got to figure out what to do with all that stuff. And if your metabolic processes are off at all, right? And you don't have enough metabolic enzymes to really handle all of those chemical components, then you're almost overwhelming your body. And so it's one of those things where, especially when you're talking about it, you don't want to overdo it. So 1 to 2 drops of each oil is going to be good. Yes, macular degeneration. Like, no promises ever with anything. I'm not a doctor, right? But in those instances, it's going to help even just to stabilize it. Pretty much anything. Sarah said, Dr. Hill being non-compliant is the best. He is the best. Helped another, man, you just helped with another child with eyesight. Yes. Yes, and especially because, I'm saying yes, I'm not repeating it. So, anything to do with eyesight, anything like if you have a muscle condition that causes like the lazy eye or the wandering eye, or you have the cross-eyed, or you have spasms, anything like that, frankincense is going to help on a multi-level thing. So it's going to help with the muscle spasms, help with the nervous functioning, and it's also going to help with the blood flow and the cellular structure. And so in that way, it's going to help, even if it's foundational, not like like, oh my God, I can see perfectly, right? It's not necessarily going to be it. Like for me to see a huge increase in or improvement in my eyesight, that was over the course of 2 years. So it's not something that I would have seen had I only done it for like 3 or 4 months. So keep that in mind. But my eyesight went to it from a negative 2.50. I'm at a negative 1.25 in one eye and a negative 1.50 in the other eye. And I think I was like negative 2.75 and negative 2.50. So that's a huge improvement. And I feel like after another 2 or 3 years, maybe, I don't know. Does that happen? I don't know. I'm excited about it if it does. So I said I'm going to pull it in 72 hours, I think. So yeah, it'll be up tomorrow morning. Depends on how nervous I get. I might pull it tomorrow night. I said everything. I said everything we're not supposed to say. So, you know, but I'll give everybody like 24 hours for sure. You know, we'll see. Okay, so how do you teach what I'm saying to other people non-compliantly? Well, that's the thing. So technically, you can't. What you can do is when you're talking one-on-one to somebody, if you're talking to your friends, if you're talking to somebody one-on-one and they have a situation and you want to help them with it, you can say things like, well, I know somebody that has, and there's research that says this. You would have to research it yourself, but if I were you, I would be using this and researching this. That's what I say. I don't ever give anybody medical advice on a one-on-one basis. Especially being an RN, I feel like that just puts me in a really sticky situation if I'm trying to give somebody medical advice, because am I a nurse or am I selling them oils? So usually I talk pretty compliantly, and I know I'm actually pretty strict about this. And I think that there are other people that are maybe a little bit more willing to be non-compliant on a one-on-one level. I stay pretty compliant in one-on-ones. I stay pretty compliant in my classes. I stay pretty compliant all the way up until somebody's already a wholesale customer. I don't ever want to feel like I'm, you know, talking about research or science or any of this stuff to try to sell oils. Once somebody's already a wholesale customer, I love to do product information, because that's a really great place where I feel like we're all wholesale customers here, right? We're all peers. We're all studying this kind of stuff together and we're sharing resources, and it feels very much like not part of a sales process. So it doesn't feel like I'm using science to sell an oil, where I'm sharing information that everybody in this group is already interested in because you already have a wholesale account. In order to be in this room, this private group, you have to have a wholesale account. So I feel much more comfortable sharing this with you guys in this space. I would never say any of this at a class or on my public profile. So even for you guys that are customers, you still don't want to talk about this stuff on your public profile. The FDA watches all that stuff and they want us to stay pretty compliant. And so the way that I teach about it is that I give resources. So in the same way that I just told you guys, aromaticscience.com, pubmed.org, the Modern Essentials book, the Essential Life book, I'm always giving people resources, and I'll even bookmark pages for them. Like if somebody tells me that they have MS, I'm going to bookmark all the sections where they talk about oils for MS, and I'm going to say what's true for me. Like, oh, I know somebody that used frankincense and used the deep blue polyphenol blend and was on the Lifelong Vitality Pack, and this is how they did it, and this is the protocol that's suggested, and such and such. And so that's how you want to share it with other people. And always make sure that you back this up, right? You want to make sure I'm not wrong. So you want to look at the research. Since I am going to delete this post, maybe I'll put some of the little things in the research. But again, some of this research that I've read that was really compelling was taken down. So we don't really have access to some of it anymore. It's kind of like up to us to keep chatting this stuff up. Dr. Josh Axe, he is very non-compliant about his oil suggestions because he feels that as a physician, if he has access to science, he can share it. But it's not compliant for you to share that on social media. So in text or email. And you also want to warn people, he sells essential oils at retail that aren't super high quality like doTERRA. So you want to just kind of wedge your bets about if you want to send people to his site or not. But yeah, so that's basically how I share. And yes, I won't keep you guys much longer. I'm realizing the time. Talked for a long time. I'll answer the rest of the questions and comments in the comment section. And I hope everybody enjoyed this. This is kind of fun, talking non-compliant. We should go back, I think, maybe to doing some Zoom chats where we don't record and we can just do some Q&A. So that would be fun. And any questions, get them in, and I will answer them next 24 hours. I know I said 72, but I don't even know. I'm such a rule follower. Guys, I might seem wild, but I'm not. So, it makes me nervous to do this, but I really did want to spread the good word. So, frankincense. I will talk to everybody soon. Have a good night. Bye.